You say that betting on a losing technology does not necessarily mean doom for a company. How is that so?
A lot of my research has focused on failure and how organizations deal with failure and what failure means to those firms. And most of what the key parts of my research would be is that behaviorally, failure often does mean real problems for the firm, in the sense that if you fail, you typically want to retreat away from where you failed. You become more risk averse. You don't really want to take those types of chances. And you tend to fall back on the stuff that you know pretty well. So from an organizational behavior perspective, how the firm actually behaves, failure can be really problematic for organizations. And the key part that you were kind of asking about here is that it shouldn't be, right? It doesn't need to be, in the sense that if we go back to thinking about learning and the way organizations do learn and what you can take away, in almost every case, when a certain path you were going down failed, it's because there was some other path that was pretty similar to what you did, but maybe a little different, that would have been a better option. It wasn't usually that you went down this path and you should have been way over here. It's that you went here and maybe you should have been there, right? And if we're thinking about switching and moving from this path to that path, these paths are pretty similar, right? They're pretty close together. There's a pretty good chance that a lot of the stuff that you learned going over here will actually be thoroughly useful when you make this decision to switch over to a different opportunity. And so in thinking about what you want to take from any experience you had, even a failed experience, this process of making sure that you don't just throw away all the knowledge that you generated, all the things that you learned and the capabilities that you built up through that experience, but figure out, okay, what was specific to that failure, and so maybe we leave that behind, but what can we take with us? And how does that inform our decision making better at this point in time? That's really important. Because it can either be certain skills that you can transfer over or certain knowledge that directly transfers over, or it's real understanding of what drives the cause and effect relationship in the business world, right? If all you ever observe is successes, you have no ability to predict what drives success versus what drives failure. You don't have any variation. You need the failures and the successes to start trying to diagnose what's actually going on. If you do what most organizations do, experience failure, shut it down, put it in a box, throw it away, you lose that knowledge and that perspective that you can actually bring with you that will help you make better decisions as you kind of keep moving through this. It's incredibly difficult, right? It requires a cultural and organizational tolerance for failure that very few organizations will ever kind of develop to the extent that they can and they should. But the ones that do, I think, really helps them encourage innovation. It encourages kind of this persistence and this ability to kind of constantly believe that they can try and make things work. Does it sometimes lead them to keep pushing down a path they shouldn't? I'm sure it does, right? There's no question that it does. But much more often it's going to help them overcome all these biases that really inhibit the ability of organizations to be innovative on the level that they hope to be when they make those investments in the first place.